Welcome everybody. I'm Michaela Parker, founder and executive director for the Academic Data Science Alliance, and I'm here to welcome you to our ADSA virtual series. Today is the kickoff of our data science conversations, but before we get started, I just wanted to say a few words about our organization. For those of you who are not familiar with the Academic Data Science Alliance, or ADSA, we are a community of data science researchers and educators who take responsibility for a just, equitable future, where data science approaches are thoughtfully applied in all domains for the benefit of all. You can read more about us on our website, which you can access via this QR code on the slide, or visit academicdatascience.org. So with that, I thank you for joining us, and I'm going to turn it over to Nick Horton, who is a professor of mathematics and statistics at Amherst College, and he will be moderating today.
Well, thank you very much, Michaela, and really to our speakers today. I'm really excited about the conversation. The two-year college system in the United States plays a critical role in helping shape the workforce and provide opportunities for our students. You know, I've seen this intimately through my work as the co-PI on the NSF DSC WAVE project, which is intended to create opportunities for undergraduate students to do data science for social good, and to also really be building programs at Massachusetts community colleges. But I also have this more personally. My daughter recently graduated with her associates from Holyoke Community College, and I saw there directly the kind of impact that the talented instructors, staff, and other students have to really kind of provide an entry path and a way forward for students, even when they've bounced around in various ways before. And that is something I'm hugely appreciative of. I wanted to just put into the chat, just to kind of give a little bit of background on some of the things that I think are pretty interesting and relevant initiatives that I think are good background. The Data Science Education Roundtable met for several years, organized by the National Academies. And in June 2019, there was a session focused on two-year colleges. Again, the only affordable game in town, and really important when thinking about both certificate programs, kind of associates to transfer and associates to workforce. And I think these are the kind of skills and things we're going to hear directly about from our presentations today. The two-year College Data Science Summit was an NSF sponsored initiative. The report of that is now out and available, and that really outlined how some of those programs could be coming together. It built upon the Data Science for Undergraduates report, which was the National Academy's 2018, that really defined. It didn't define data science, which was an interesting thing for a report like that, but it did outline key areas of data acumen. And we'll hear today how these programs at these two schools are building those components, introducing, reinforcing, and helping students develop mastery in those areas. And last but not least, Renata Rawlings-Goss from the South Big Data Hub and a number of colleagues and collaborators organized a workshop in 2018, 2019, something like that. The report is available at the link I've given, that really talked about how we need to be building in efforts and initiatives to ensure that data science is accessible to the entire population, that we don't replicate the exclusionary history we have in a number of other disciplines. So those resources I think are going to be really valuable. As I said, I'm very, very excited. I'd like to start by introducing our speakers. Norene Kemp is Department Head for Programming and Information Sciences at Wake Tech Community College in Raleigh, North Carolina. She's responsible for 3 programs within the Information Technology Division. Before moving to Wake Tech a couple of years ago, she was an instructor at Johnston Community College, Horry Georgetown Technical College, Coastal Carolina University, and Concordia University. And again, teaching at the master's, undergraduate, and associate's level. So I think really can understand the bigger picture and the parts and pieces. We're also going to have the opportunity to hear from Rachel Saidi. She's an associate professor and data science certificate program coordinator in the Department of Mathematics, Statistics, and Data Science at Montgomery College, which has a number of campuses serving students in Maryland. She coordinates 3 data science programs, including their data science certificate, Associates of Arts and General Studies STEM with data science concentration, and a soon to be offered Associate of Science in Data Science. Her work also includes engagement with industries, local government representatives to provide various opportunities and experiences for students. We know how important those co-curricular experiences are. As I said, I'm really excited today, so I'm going to now turn things over and let you get started at this point, Norene, and we'd love to hear more about what you've been doing.
Thank you so much for that wonderful welcome. I appreciate that. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share my screen here with you. And let's go ahead and talk about data science at Wake Tech Community College. And our program is a program that is a part of the IT division at Wake Tech Community College. We are one of 58 community colleges in the state of North Carolina, and I'm happy to say we are the largest community college with the most students in all of the community colleges in North Carolina. The IT division is the largest division in the Wake Tech community, and my department, which is the Programming and Information Sciences, is the largest department within the largest division. So I usually have about 2,000 students. Currently, I have about 300 active students in my data science program. And it has been a program that's been around since 2019. We did a major rehaul when I was hired back in August of 2019, where we took a business analytics out of the business administration program and brought it into the IT division. And we looked at the two different curriculums and decided, well, how are we going to disseminate and differentiate between those two programs? And what we decided to do was to focus in data science on the back end, and then our business analytics focuses on the front end of data analytics and data science and just data information. So the programming learning outcomes for our data science program are that students are able to input, manage, manipulate, report, analyze data using appropriate programming languages. The focus of our program with languages is Python, so all of our students do learn Python. Another learning outcome is that students will discuss applications of data analytics and the support of big data. And then students will also work effectively as a team, in a team, and to help solve real world problems. And then also explain the ways to ensure the quality and security of all written code and data. And then also have the ability to produce college level content that conveys purpose and meaning at the mastery level. And then finally, students will have the opportunity or the ability to, I have to move my screen here, we'll be able to solve those problems, draw conclusions, and generate new ideas or artifacts using appropriate languages. So some of the data tools that we use in our program are SAS, and again, the Python. Our statistics students are taught statistics with R. We then, for data visualization, teach Tableau, and we're actually getting ready to bring in some Power BI. We have found that the two of those applications serve our students and our community well with getting students hired. GitHub, and then of course SQL and Oracle. So our data science, in the SQL world, they are learning how to work with database objects, data population, data transactions, data deletion, data query, database development. They're looking at writing SQL code, creating data scripts, and then using Python, input, process, output, decisions, repetitions, all using both the object-oriented and procedural language part of Python. So who do we serve? One would think that being at Wake Tech, we would serve right out of high school students at the two-year community college. But in our data science program, we found that the average age is actually 34. Students are usually head of household, so they're working and going to school at the same time. 43% female, 57% male. And then we also have in our ethnic types, 34% white, 29% Asian, 19% Black, and 11% Native American. And we're actually participating in a NSF grants, collab grants, where we're looking at these underserved populations and how we can serve them better. So those lower numbers, we're hoping to grow those lower numbers as well. One of the biggest things that I think our program differentiates from the four-year programs or the other different programs is the practical application. Our students have an opportunity in the degree program to do work-based learning, where they have the opportunity to work as an intern, earn valuable experience, get paid, and earn credit all at the same time. Our data science students also participate in our 2-semester capstone project. It is starts in the fall, and they are grouped with other students within the course, and they start the software development process, but they only do the first part. So they do the project pitch, the systems, software requirements document, and then a high-level document. And then all of the projects that are finished at that point in CSC 154 come forward to the second semester, the programming capstone, where they are assigned a programmer, they're assigned a database person, and they actually pick one of the projects that was pitched in the fall, and they actually bring it to fruition. And it's from scratch, and it's the entire process. The great thing about our capstone project is we mentor our students with professional industry representatives. So folks from my advisory committee, they actually volunteer to come in and spend time with our students in the fall and the spring semester to give them that professional advice, as well as getting the academic advice and credentials or critiques as they move through that software development lifecycle. And then the other thing is soft skills, soft skills, soft skills. We hear it all the time. We are working very hard within our curriculum to ensure that the soft skills are as great as the technical skills. We have been working with our work-based learning partners here for the last 2 semesters. I have one partner in particular who they also hire 4-year interns. And I learned earlier this week that my 2-year community college data science students are outperforming some of those 4-year university students. So I'm happy to say all 5 of those interns are being hired into full-time positions with HCL America, doing data science and working and starting their professional careers there. So if you'd like to learn more about our program, I have created a QR code, and that will take you straight to our website. One of the great things that I do love about our program is that we have an amazing partnership and articulation agreement with UNC Charlotte with their data science program. Yeah, I saw that, Doug. And we are constantly sharing that information with our students. And I know we've had several students who've come to Charlotte and has joined the program there. And I can't wait to hear how our students are doing compared to the native students. And that's something we'll talk about later, Doug. Other than that, that's all I have. And I will turn it over to Rachel.
Great. Well, thank you very much. That really is exciting to kind of be hearing about those aspects. Again, articulation will come back to. Your notice there about career success factors, again, really key components of data acumen. I would love to hear, and we'll talk a little bit more about your advisory committee. I know that the care and feeding of an advisory committee is a tremendous amount of work and effort, but it's neat to see that connection you made. And again, the 2-semester capstone, I think, are the kinds of experiences that students will be needing. But again, I'd love to kind of now hear from Rachel Saidi. So please take it away, Rachel.
Again, my name is Rachel Saidi. I am at Montgomery College, which is a 2-year college in kind of Montgomery County, which is right outside of Washington, D.C. Our program resides in the Math, Statistics, and Data Science department. One thing that is interesting about our college is that, again, I guess this is the same thing about, I'm so sorry, hang on. my own face was in the way. I apologize. Let me see if I can. I guess I can't. Okay. So anyway, we were ranked as the most diverse two-year college on the continental US. I think this was 2 years ago. So we do cater to a diverse group of students. As Nick said in the introduction, so we currently have Associate of Arts with General Studies STEM and Data Science concentration. Our backbone is the Data Science certificate. Right now, we're just about wrapping up our approval for the Data Science Associate of Science degree. And we are also just starting to create a business analytics degree. So those are the options that we're working on right now. We also have program outcomes that align very similarly to what Norene described. So we have different analysis and data management techniques, execute analyses of large and disparate data sets, demonstrate competency with programming, summarize and communicate findings of complex analyses using both statistical and graphical measures, understand, evaluate, and apply ethical principles in the data lifecycle. So our data science certificate, which as I said, is currently our backbone to our program, requires students to take 5 classes. So there is a choice of 3 different introductory statistics classes. The biostatistics class is the one right now that we're thinking of trying to retool because it's actually the one that is most suited for our data science students. It starts from the beginning of introductory statistics, but it's using R as a programming language, and it also goes quite heavily through all sorts of regression analysis. Once they have completed that statistics course, then they're eligible to take our 2 100-level data courses, and after that, they can take the 2 200-level data classes to complete the certificate. So they could potentially complete it in 3 semesters. And many of our students, like Norene's, are upskilling. They already have either an undergraduate degree or even graduate degrees. So many of them already come with statistics backgrounds or at least a statistics course, and then they could conceivably complete the certificate in 2 semesters. So these are just some details on the courses. We use R in our studio in both the 100-level classes. They get an introduction to GitHub. There is scaffolding that I've actually really been grateful to talk to Doug Haig, who is here, about getting better at incorporating in all of our data classes with the data ethics. The data visualization and communication class is where they learn all sorts of techniques in order to create visualizations. Communication is also kind of one of the major portions of the course. And actually in there, they will also get some introduction to Shiny apps, mapping in GIS, Tableau. Then the 201 is in Python, and they'll learn a lot of the data analytics with statistical methods such as machine learning, clustering, classification. And then finally, we have a 1-semester capstone course, not a 2-semester capstone course. So I also would love to hear about that, where we do partner with industries or local governments. Many of our students use our county's open data sets from Data Montgomery, not all of them. And at the end of the semester, they will present to the county government. At least we take some select students to present. And we've noticed that a lot of times our students present and shed eye-opening discoveries to the data managers at these meetings. Sorry, somehow I lost it. There we go. So we started very small. We started with about 30 students in 2017. We've had, by a factor of 10 less, on the lower end of I think you mentioned 2,000 students are taking your data classes, Norene, but we have about 200 total with only 4 faculty members. I just wanted to give you an idea of what our Associate of Science degree will have, because I'm very excited about the wide range of types of courses and disciplines that are going to be exposed to, including geography, psychology, philosophy, and programming. So over the last couple of years, due to the pandemic, students have been presenting virtually their capstone projects. We've also had our students participating in DataFest DC. That's always been really fun. These are our tools, which are very similar to Norene's, the one you mentioned. We don't go through SAS. And we also, I wanted to put this in there. I don't have a breakdown of demographics like what Norene did, but the majority, about 75% of our students who are in the data science program already have a bachelor's or graduate degree. We have all sorts of connections that we've been working on. As a matter of fact, last night we partnered with Washington Statistical Society and hosted a careers in statistics and data science panel discussion. And finally, this is for, because these slides are out there, that I just wanted to share some of the resources of where we are working with partners. And of course, ASDA, I appreciate all of the connections you have helped us to gather. And that's my presentation. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Rachel. This is really, this is really great to kind of be hearing a little bit more about what you've been doing. We've got a couple of questions, and I wonder if we can kind of start with those. The one I'm going to kind of put up is, Andreas, are you willing or interested in sharing your question on kind of the background, whether students come in with little or no programming and what fraction go on to four-year colleges? Obviously, there's a variety of different programs, and these are still pretty new, but maybe Norene, do you want to start with that?
Sure. Our students actually come in with no expectation of programming, and they take an entry-level programming course in Python, and then they also take the database course is SQL and Oracle, and so they learn some languages there as well. Right now, and actually, Rachel, we have 233 students in data science and 2,000 active students in all three of my programs. So yeah, we're right there with you. We're right there with you. I don't have data yet on the number of students that transfer. Unfortunately, that's one of those things that we just don't collect. Since being named the department head, I am trying to track that information with my students who graduate on a survey, but getting them to complete the survey after they've gotten their piece of paper is really, really hard. But I do know with our articulation agreement with UNC Charlotte, we do have students who are pursuing that four-year program there, but I don't know what the percentage is.
Yeah, let me jump in, and there's a few that are coming, but one of the things that's interesting when I've been working with community college, for us at the four-year college, there's a big difference in the transfer students between an applied associates of science and an associates of science. So they're different degrees, and you have to treat the transfer differently, which is why we have a general articulation agreement or transfer agreement with Wake Tech, but I had to sign a specific one for the data science degree. Because it's an applied associates of science. I think I said that right, Norene. And so there's a little bit different agreement that we had to make, and we can dive into that if you want.
Great. Rachel, do you have any thoughts on this kind of question about kind of coming in with background? You talked about some do, some don't, but and do you have any sense of where folks are going?
Yeah, so I have been the data science coordinator for the last 2 years. So there has been a bit of kind of history before me, and I am so grateful for the folks who created this degree, because I think they worked really closely with the folks at national academies, and so what they tried to do is create something that's very open-ended that could be agile and evolve. And so right when we started, pretty much every single one of our students already had graduate degrees and only were interested in getting jobs. To date, I believe we have had 2 students transfer. We have one four-year institution. It's University of Maryland. At University is at Shady Grove, and so they have an information science four-year degree, and we have an articulation agreement with them. But we've had 2 students, and that's it. Everyone else is interested in jobs, and in fact, that's why we held that career panel last night. In terms of the question about whether they come in with any background in programming, it's such a wide range. And that's kind of, I guess, the joys and the challenge of teaching those types of students, because you get students who have a hard, I'll be honest, I've had a student have a hard time opening Word documents in the past, which is, you don't want to say no, but it's a deep challenge to get them to the point where, we want them to be coding. And then I have students who have a lot of experience coding.
Great. There was a question that came in a little earlier for Norene about, the work-based learning program is really exciting, but who manages it? Who shepherds it? Because there's a tremendous amount of time and effort in kind of curating those relationships. Could you talk a little bit about both the kind of, the wonderful things that come from that, but also some of the time challenges?
Absolutely. And it's all about, creating those partnerships and creating those opportunities for our students and our employers seeing what our students can actually do. And it all started with our advisory committee and bringing our advisory committee in to be professional mentors for our students through that Capstone project, and seeing that our students are actually capable to do some of the work. But yes, it is very time consuming. This semester alone, I have 20 students that are doing work-based learning, and I am the faculty coordinator who is herding all of the cats. And there's a lot of paperwork that goes along with it. There's site visits and surveys and all that other good stuff. So yeah, it is definitely time consuming, but what you get out of it in the end is students who are getting their foot in the door, and they're actually going into their career through this internship opportunity. And so yeah, it's definitely worth it.
Great. Rachel, you've also got some neat kind of connections with industry, and I think really innovative kind of connections with the county in terms of trying to kind of make insights that are relevant for folks in Montgomery County. Can you talk a little bit more about how that works and how that's organized? And
yeah, so our Capstone course, which I'm actually so interested in how, Norene, you guys have 2 semesters and can fit that into the program. That's just incredible, because I'm sure what we're lacking is the kind of teamwork leadership piece, because we have them basically doing what your second semester is. So in that Capstone course, the faculty is kind of like a mentor and a liaison to the Montgomery County Executive Office. So the students explore all of the data sets. And right now, I think to date, there's somewhere around 230. They can also select other data sets. And we have had a few students select something that they have some background in, but most of them select these. And so then they're connected with the data managers at the executive office, so they can ask questions, they can find out details, kind of gather information, and then it becomes a little bit of a back and forth as students have questions. And sometimes that has, that's caused a lot of the data managers to actually adapt how they're collecting data over time, because it is such a new partnership. And I'm pretty sure that University of Maryland College Park is doing something similar. And so there's kind of I guess a triangle of all of our programs working with Data Montgomery and the Montgomery County Executive Office.
great. There's a question about kind of, what computing environments students learn. The National Academy Report kind of said that there's options, but it's important that students get really good in at least one. It certainly makes sense for me, Norene, that there would be some SAS in the water at Wake Tech, but you both kind of include R, Python, and SQL, as well as SAS at Wake Tech. Can you talk a little bit, following up on the question we have in there about the balance between those, and also whether there's a sense of what industry partners are asking for? Because I know we've heard other people thinking that Tableau is going to be important for data visualization and kind of Shiny for dynamic dashboards, and you can only teach them so much.
It is. It's a very hard balance to try and figure out how deep do you go, and how many different skills that they should be able to be proficient in. So we, again, because we do both business analytics, which is the front end, and data science, which is the back end, our data science students do take one of our business analytics courses, which is the SAS course. So they do get introduced to SAS, but it's just an introduction. But the main focus is going to be the SQL backend, the Oracle backend, and then also Python.
Rachel?
So we made a decision that we only wanted to use open source software so that it would be accessible for our students. No, open source textbooks, anything that we wanted. We just wanted to make sure that it was accessible for our students. So that's why we started with R and moved to Python. And as Norene said, it's really hard to fit all of those skills in a sequence of 4 or 5 classes. And actually, that was originally the title of my talk, was fitting it all in. And it's funny because a colleague of mine really wants us to start moving to Julia. So then, whenever you add something new, you have to take something out or balance. And so it's going to be an endless evolution of what we're using. But the SQL, as a matter of fact, right now for the data science students, they get exposure to it in the capstone. It's a unit. It's not even an entire semester. When they do take the associative science, that is going to be one of the courses, but it's not even a required, it's a recommended course.
Great. So Rachel, a little bit of kind of flip around in the order, if that's okay with you. The skills are changing a lot, right? We're trying to figure out what these courses should be. How are the faculty, the instructors, what's it like running a program like this, helping to kind of do the faculty development for your instructors, and how can we foster faculty development? Are there ways we could be sharing resources, and can ADSA be useful in that? Again, lots of places there, but I'm imagining it's a challenge to find the instructors. You have the student demand.
Okay, so many questions there. I would actually like to thread back to what you said about how can ADSA help. And actually, this is one of the reasons why I wanted to join this conversation, one of the many reasons. But I would love to kind of join forces with Norene at Wake Technical, and maybe if we can also find other community colleges of like mind who would like to kind of foster these conversations. We're really lucky because we are so small that we are a faculty of 4. And so 2 of our faculty are adjuncts because they're in the workforce and they're incredible. And we're so lucky that they basically are teaching with us because they like to teach, but they're so skilled and so knowledgeable. And then the 2 of us who are full-time, one of them was also in the workforce for about 30 or 40 years. So there's a lot of experience and knowledge. So right now we're okay. And we actually recently in this last spring went through a hiring to hire our next set of faculty for math, statistics, and data science. And the requirement was that they did have some capabilities in data science. So, but it is a challenge, and it requires, just constantly updating and professional development for all of us.
Great. And again, I think that role for ADSA is something we can certainly continue those conversations. But Norene, how are things on your end?
The same. I struggle to find qualified faculty members. We have 3 full-time business analytics instructors, and I have 4 full-time data science instructors. And when it comes to professional development, that's one thing that Wake Tech is absolutely fantastic about, and upskilling and making sure that our faculty do get that opportunity. But one of the bad things about working for the state of North Carolina is the pay. And what's even worse is where we're located, we've got SAS in our backyard. We've got all of these big name companies in the backyard that pay triple what my faculty make and what my students are being able to earn with just the associate's degree. I had a student who was hired as a data engineer making $130,000 at the completion of the associate's degree here in the Raleigh area. That's hard to compete with. Luckily, I have been blessed with faculty who are here because they love it and they love to teach, but it is a constant struggle. I've got 4 full-time open positions right now if anybody wants to come to Wake Tech.
Well, I'm happy to have that shameless plug kind of go out to everyone, Norene. And again, I think the commitment to the mission is really important, and then trying to figure out how to make this job sustainable and workable for folks. One of the things I think is pretty exciting as these programs develop is I think is going to be a natural transition. Rachel, you had talked about, I think 75% were coming in with prior degrees. And I think that's often true for certificate programs at 2-year and community colleges in this country. That's a way for someone who might be in biology to kind of come in some new area. But I know that there's also a large number and a growing number of high school students who are taking courses at community colleges. Based on the estimates I heard at a separate event today, there's about 2 million high school students currently taking courses at community colleges. If you look at new fall enrollments from pre-pandemic 2019, it sounded like 16% of the new fall enrollments nationwide at community colleges were high school students. This varied a lot. It was like 16% overall, higher in some states, lower in others. But I think it raises some really important questions about making data science transparent, particularly for high school students who are starting to think about what their vocation can be. And before we lose them, whatever model you take, a watershed model or others, where we've lost those students in the past. I wonder, Rachel, if you could talk about whether you see some changes that might happen as your program develops, and ways to kind of really be thinking of supporting these kind of juniors in high school who might be really excited about the opportunities you're offering.
So it's really timely as a topic because just the other day around the math, I guess I should just say the STEM disciplines, we're talking about how do we change math at the high school level. I know this is a big conversation around the country, so that maybe algebra 2 may be interchanged in some way with statistics. And that's a big question. And that raises all sorts of issues for us. But I think that's one way that we can capture more of those students if they get excited at the high school level, if they're if they're introduced to statistics and data science early on. And so one of the ways that we had thought about actually advertising our program to broaden it was to get into the high schools and to literally walk in and make presentations in the high schools and let them know about our data science program. But it's hard because we have some early college programs and dual enrollment programs, but many of them already have very prescriptive curricula that they just don't have any time to explore data science. So it's something where we're just kind of starting to look at what's the next step to really tap into that population, because I think they're the exciting new students who could really feed our programs and start early so we could really grow it.
Great. Yeah, Norene, you're nodding. Do you have other thoughts on that in terms of how we can build towards this next generation?
Absolutely. We too are very in touch with our high schools as well. And we're constantly going into the high school and doing presentations and trying to just spark that interest. And I'm happy to say that we just opened up a new building on one of our campuses that's going to be the early college high school for STEM. And we've already got partnerships with Wake County Public Schools with my programming degree and for the early college. And I'm hoping to expand that into the data science as well. But yeah, we're constantly, we got to spark them early and snatch them up early.
Great. So one of the other vexing issues, we heard a little bit of it earlier, and some of the conversations, is really about articulation. While, we've seen tremendous demand and I think great opportunities that are growing for students with an associate's going straight into the workforce. But we also know, if we think of it as a pyramid, that they might be able to kind of go beyond that. They might want to go beyond that. You've talked a little bit about how things were negotiated at Charlotte and and how this has come together. But, you know, maybe Rachel, could you talk a little bit about how that's working? You have a couple of students who've actually transferred, but is the articulation process straightforward, or maybe that's not the right word to use to describe it perhaps? But again, and the question is, how could ADSA, how could we thinking about organizing ways to make this easier and more transparent for students who want to kind of go further?
So that's a great question. It is definitely not straightforward. I think when our data science program began in 2017, I don't believe that there were any other four-year institutions locally that had specifically data science programs. And that's why it was created with such open-ended ideals, because they wanted it to kind of be able to adapt as the four-year institutions around us at least caught up. And so unfortunately, one of our biggest four-year institutions is very heavy computer science as a data science program. And so our data science degree as it's written right now does not really transfer at all. So we have other 4 years one that it's definitely right now already transferring to. And that's not saying a whole lot, because there are so many four-year institutions around us. And so we have, I think I have feelers and conversations started, and you know, my Excel spreadsheet of about at least 5 institutions where it's started but not really getting at the traction that we would hope for. And that's hard for the students, because then they're not going to choose to take the data science because it doesn't transfer if that's what they'd like to do. And that's the traction that we're really hoping to gain and get some experience from maybe Norene and Wake Forest, because I know you guys have a wonderful partnership with Doug at UNC Charlotte.
And again, this is where I think it's been pretty innovative. The programs at your 2 particular institutions have been far ahead of where some of the four-year institutions in your states are at. And again, it's not the kind of like there's a traditional thing where you just plug into. You're really reinventing this in innovative ways. But Norene, do you have other thoughts on articulation?
Yeah, one of the great things that we have is we have a director who is the director of university relationships, who actually start the conversations at the four-year institutions, and being able to create those connections. And it's, you know, amazing, great-minded folks like Doug and his group who saw the benefit of having a direct connect to students from the two-year community college to then go into the four-year community college, and seeing the value of what we're teaching in our curriculum. It takes those types of minds to eliminate the stigma that community colleges have. And at the four-year university, I could name a four-year state school that is not in the UNC family that will not look at any of our students. And they are so large, they have so many applicants that they don't care. They don't need our students. And luckily, we've just partnered with, they have a new data science program that they're starting at that state institution. And we've started those talks, but it came in a roundabout way, a backwards way. So just, you know, working with your advisory committee, working with your faculty. My faculty have to have master's degrees in statistics or data science to be able to teach these courses. So they've gone through these master's programs and bachelor's programs. So I rely on them and their folks that they've gone to school with and their connections as well. And that's how I've been able to actually even get some qualified faculty. We've convinced them to leave industry and come join the great world of education.
Well, and again, I'm glad to hear that. The stigma, unfortunately, is still out there to some extent. And I think people are thinking they're not really kind of keeping track of the levels that the pedagogy has moved towards. When we think about innovations like active learning, group-based learning, really focused on high impact practices, I think the community colleges and STEM education have made remarkable strides and are really leading the pack in some ways. And so trying to figure out ways of kind of connecting and engaging when there is that kind of sense from before. I think it's been remarkable, even in a place like Amherst, which is a highly selective liberal arts college. We're moved to the point where something like half of our transfer students now are community college graduates, many veterans. And again, I think that's a remarkable thing. Those students have a different pathway they've come through, but they've got incredible life experiences and they've had some really, they're incredibly motivated and end up being quite successful. I guess as we come to the last couple of minutes, I'd be interested in kind of hearing, Norene, what's the biggest challenge your program is facing at this point? And and again, ways we could be helping to think about supporting you and others who are in similar straits.
Well, I would have to say my biggest challenge is having enough students to fill the jobs that I'm being asked to fill. And I did a report the other day, just in the last 2 months, I've had an opportunity for 196 positions. And I have 38 students who are eligible for work-based learning. And so there's so much demand and so much need in the community for data scientists. Data is hot right now, and it is the leading jobs here in the Triangle. And there are so many, I just don't have enough students. And the other challenge is, keeping qualified, credentialed faculty and keeping them with the low salaries that, unfortunately we have.
That's remarkable to hear, just given that nationwide, I think the pandemic has led to something like a 5 to 15% drop in enrollments in community colleges. It's been so difficult for so many of us, but I think it's been particularly difficult for the population that you have as students. And so the fact that you're seeing that kind of, that demand for the workforce and students there is fabulous. Rachel, kind of biggest challenge?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say, Norene, I would love to shadow you. I feel like I am following you in terms of our program is just a little bit behind. And we actually have opposite challenges. So ours is in advertising our program, getting the word out to students. But I would not just say just students, but also the right students. Because some students are very interested in trying data science, but they don't actually believe that they're going to have to code, and then they get in and then they're kind of a little bit confused as to why they started this in the first place. So not just advertising, but advertising to the right type of student. That would be on the front end, and then on the back end, the articulation process for the universities. And so again, I want to shadow you on that part as well, Norene. This is just a really, it's been a very good conversation to kind of open my eyes a little bit more about all the things that I would like to do and work with you and maybe hopefully, other community colleges to kind of build our program a little bit more.
Absolutely. I would be honored.
Rachel, that idea of ensuring that students can kind of seamlessly move through different kinds of things. I could imagine a student in psychology who wants to take some data science courses, who's going to be really well served, even if they don't decide to transfer into a full-blown associates at that level. And there may be others who kind of start in math and are suddenly like, oh my gosh, this is really what I want to be doing. And I think having these programs and trying to keep those pathways as flexible as possible. One anecdote I remembered from the 2-year college data science summit was we actually heard from some students. And you've both, again, Norene, in large numbers. Is there another anecdote you might share as a closing thought today about something, either some feedback you've gotten from a student who's now off in the workforce or other kind of insight that might help inspire, the rest of us who are trying to kind of figure out how to scale what you're doing to other institutions?
I guess the one thing that I can share that is so amazing and just kind of like blew me away was the Associate of Science student in data science was hired as a data engineer at $130,000. That's pretty amazing. And to have an opportunity, again, with our data science program, we're working with several of our industry partners. We've had several students hired at Wake Med, specifically for business analytics and or data science. UNC Systems office. We're working with those guys, and amazing opportunities for our students there. So the one thing that I'd like to share and kind of leave you with is that there's no reason to reinvent the wheel. We are here, we have done this, and we are continuing to do this and make changes, because the next thing that we're looking at is AI and machine learning. And where does that fit in the data science world? And how do we fit it all in with that? And so, but yeah, absolutely. Use your resources. I've always said to my students, and I would be happy to share any insight or any information that I have that, you know, on our successful program and how we did get it to where it is today. It's not been overnight. It has been a 2-year process to get to where we are, to have the advisory committee, to have the articulation agreements, and to have the right students to go through the program. But it is definitely doable.
Well, Norene, it's fabulous to see how all that hard work is paying off so in such exciting ways. But Rachel, you get the last word.
Well, I will give you 2 short anecdotes. One was just actually about a month ago. One student who is a former graduate of our certificate program contacted me and said, "Hey, where I've been working since I was hired for the last 2 years, they're looking for a data scientist. Can you put the word out?" And then a couple weeks later, one of our students actually joined that company. That was incredible. So that peer-to-peer information. But the next one is kind of, I think, to me, most inspirational. So we have one student who's a math major who's also, he got an internship at NIST, and he was working there and, you know, garnering all sorts of skills. So for his capstone, he proposed that he would join a bunch of the disparate data sets at Data Montgomery through the geocoding. And it's funny because when they were on the call with the executives, their vendor was on the phone call, and they were like, that's what we've been asking our vendor to do for X amount of time. So this student has a bright future ahead. And so now there's talks about how they can, you know, how he can preserve his intellectual property on his capstone project. So very interesting stuff going on.
Great. Well, thank you for that. You both are fabulous, and I just appreciate it. We're going to go ahead, and we've reached the end of time, but we will be posting the recording. But again, a great thank you from everyone for sharing your wisdom.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and thank you for allowing me to share.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.